David Mandel is the founder and CEO of the Safe and Together Institute, a global organisation that runs training programs for professionals working in child protection, the family court and intersecting agencies. He joins me now from Connecticut, where I understand you were listening on to that announcement from the Prime Minister. What's your initial reaction?
Thanks, Dan, for having me. More money is always needed, and it's probably not going to be enough given the scope of the problem. But it's really heartening to see the investment that's being made across Australia in this really critical area.
And part of that has to be the language that the Prime Minister was using a number of times, referring to this as a national crisis. What did that say to you?
Well, it is. It's one of the largest issues, not just in Australia, but in many countries. And you only just need to look at not only the deaths that have happened recently, but data like the Australian Child Maltreatment Study that says that the most common maltreatment that Australians are exposed to, almost 40%, is exposure to domestic violence. So we're looking at, and I know there was a prioritization of children and young people, but that really says something at a population level that this is a really common experience of children growing up in homes with domestic violence. So it runs the range of the extreme events of femicide, murder of children in the context of domestic violence, but it also ranges to just everyday experiences of so many children and so many families to be exposed to domestic violence perpetrators' behaviours.
And I want to put to you directly, David, the comment that the New South Wales Premier, Chris Minns, said that this is a part about money, part about law change. The massive element, he said, is cultural change, and he really reiterated that point. Did that resonate with you? Is that the crux of this challenge here, is it's around a lack of respect for culture?
I think it's a huge issue, and I think that in the work we're doing, and so we work across Australia, we've got numerous dozens of partner agencies. We have people delivering our training in Australia. We work with the federal family court for the last 3 years around their systems and the changes they want to make around this area, which has been really important. And what we see in Australia, and we see it in New Zealand, we see it in Japan, we're working, we see it in North America, United Kingdom, that one of the things that when we talk about culture change that doesn't get enough attention is that when we're talking about cases of domestic violence in kids, that a lot of the response is shaped by mother blaming and what we call father ignoring, and this was the topic of a recent book that I put out, which is that we have such low expectations for men as parents. And that doesn't mean there are a lot of men who aren't great parents. But when it comes to domestic violence, it's really hard to hold men accountable for the harm they're doing to the kids, which is so critical to child protection, so critical to family court, because our wider culturally held ideas is, men babysit their own kids, for instance, and we don't expect men to do day-to-day care, but their behavior impacts day-to-day care. Their behavior impacts their kids' health and well-being. So when you combine that with low expectations for men and you combine that with higher expectations for women as parents, what you get culturally across all these systems, shared by many of these systems, is a lot of mother blaming for the damage that the male perpetrators are doing to their children. And that significantly impacts the taking of children, particularly from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander families, through child protection, and impacts outcomes in the family court.
And just finally, you touched on this, David, a little bit about some of the work that you and your team have been doing across institutions. Can you just tell us about Safe Together, what it is and what you hope to achieve through it?
The Safe and Together model is a globally recognized model that really tries to work to keep children safe and together with that protective parent, which is usually the mom, and to help systems partner with those survivors, align with their protective efforts, because you get survivors who are doing tremendous work to keep their kids safe, keep them on the right track, keep them going to school, taking that day-to-day care, parenting in a foxhole, basically. And we need to look at that person as our biggest ally around the safety of the kids. We need to honor their efforts. We need to partner with them in practical, real ways where we see their strengths and we lift them up, because that's not only important to them, it's important to their kids. And so the Safe and Together Institute, that's where the name comes from, keeping kids safe and together with that protective parent. And this model has been picked up by really diverse organizations from the Ministry of Health in New South Wales, to, like I said, the Federal Family Court, to Department of Communities in Western Australia, could go on, that they're looking to apply this to their day-to-day work with families. And so since we've been in Australia for 10 years, but over the last 5 years, we've trained about 15,000 professionals in Australia in the Safe Together model, bringing them into this common framework and language, producing really important results for families.